We're here today with Matt Stutsel, who's the National Head of State Taxes here at KPMG. We're going to have a sit down with Matt and talk about his career and some of his experiences in the law. Thanks for your time today, Matt. I guess my first question for you is, why did you decide to study the law?
Frankly, I decided to study law for the money.
Okay.
I grew up wanting to be a research scientist, and I had a close relative, who was a research scientist with the CSIRO, and he convinced me that in order to get a decent job, I'd either have to go overseas or do a PhD. And at that stage, I thought, I'd never get a PhD, and I didn't think I'd ever travel overseas much. Couldn't see myself living outside Australia. So I thought, well, I better find something else to do with my skills. I had the marks for law, and so I decided law would be a great way to earn enough money to take care of myself.
Okay.
I'll do law. So at uni I did science law.
Science law, yes, right, okay. And there was never any sort of hesitation during uni when you were studying a science degree and preferred that? Or did you find that perhaps law sort of came to suit you better?
No, it was a hard choice still.
Okay, yeah.
So I got through to the end of third year and took an honours year in chemistry.
Oh, right.
Pure and applied chemistry, finished the honours year there and was offered a PhD scholarship.
Okay.
And so got to that position of really having to decide, do I take now the PhD and something that is really interesting, or how much was I enjoying law? And I decided I was really enjoying law and wanted to go on and do that.
Okay,
so
great.
I decided to stay.
And then you took a graduate position at Freehills, was it?
Yeah, so that was, now I'm dating myself, that was 1994. Mm-hmm. I took a grad position at Freehills and stayed there for over 17 years.
Right. And then how did you get into tax law specifically?
So Freehills or Freehill, Hollingdale and Page as it was then, now Herbert Smith Freehills. Freehills had a rotation program like most of the law firms, and after my first rotation, which was in property, I'd seen a lot of the benefit of stamp duty and tax planning for clients, and thought that this was a really good opportunity to rotate into the team, do my second rotation there, and my plan was then to go back to property and use that to improve my property skills. But
Okay.
I got there, loved it, saw an opportunity, seized it.
Right, okay, great. Because I know that sort of, I suppose tax law would have a reputation as sort of a particularly boring area of law perhaps, but equally I talk to tax practitioners and they seem to love it. So I guess just from your point of view,
Yeah.
what about it is so enjoyable? Do you find it quite analytical and what is it in particular?
Yeah, tax law is very analytical, but it's very much like being at university. There's a problem, the client brings you the problem. They give you a set framework in which to consider an issue, and then it's coming up with the solution. So you've got legislation, you've got case law, but then the benefit of actual practice compared to university is all of the lateral thinking that goes into restructuring the problem itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because what the client's really after is not a solution to their immediate question, but how to get from A to B. They don't necessarily realise that they could go through C. And
Okay.
so the chance to explore with the client, what are you really wanting to achieve, and what other ways are there to achieve that,
Okay.
rather than the immediate question they might present.
So you mentioned that prior to the recent shift to KPMG, you were at Freehills for some 17 years. Did you enjoy it there?
I had a ball.
Okay, so it was a great environment that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, I really would. Working with Freehills was an amazing experience and presented me with so many different opportunities, as well as working for one place at a long time and making a lot of very good friends. I was able to work with people who had incredible skills, incredible reputations, incredible client bases. The thing about working in a firm like that, and the same as working here, is the quality of the clients, the quality of the work, and the quality of the people.
Mm.
And that was something that Freehills prided itself on, and it's something that we also pride ourselves on at KPMG.
Okay, fantastic. I did know that in an interview recently, which you gave with Lawyers Weekly, you mentioned that the culture at KPMG you prefer somewhat to that at Freehills.
Yeah,
Why is that?
I think it's a culture that enables people to have more work-life balance.
Okay.
And the real point there is, I think, around gearing and team structure. So when I was at Freehills, my team was very much smaller. The expectations of us were very, very tough.
Right.
And so we turned through quite a high number of people in the team, and it was very hard work a lot of the time.
Mm.
Here, we have the same expectations of performance, but measured slightly differently. So I don't have to expect from my team the same number of billable hours in a day as I expected of my team at Freehills.
Is the lawyer partner ratio different at Freehills as opposed to KPMG? Is that
very much? Yes. Okay. Yeah, and so that gearing ratio at Freehills, I was a partner with a team of 2 to 3 lawyers underneath me.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I have a team of 12.
Right. Okay.
And nationally, I have a team of about just over 30.
Okay. Right. And so there's a difference in expectation among young lawyers. It's just more balanced, more balance for them.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think part of it too is the nature of the work, in that as an advisory lawyer, practicing in stamp duty at Freehills, my work hours there were much more stable. When I moved to one of the transactional teams and was practicing in funds management, there the work is much more come and go. Mm-hmm. And when a deal is on, you're there very long hours. Mm. And then when the deal is off, there's more time sitting around trying to figure out what's next.
Mm-hmm.
With the advisory work, it's a much more balanced workflow.
Okay, so does KPMG do purely the advisory work?
So here it's advisory work on the transactions,
right,
but it's the advisory work. It's not actually documenting the transaction itself.
Okay.
So it's not about the drafting, it's about putting the deal together and reshuffling the deal and advising on the outcomes of the deal. And so what that means is the hours are much more consistent across the year.
Okay. So you mentioned that the nature of the work done by a professional services firm such as KPMG is somewhat different to the tax work done by a law firm. Does KPMG have a tax controversy practice still, though? Is there still litigious work that you are involved in?
Yeah, we have a tax controversy practice. That's broken into 2 components. One is we have an affiliated business called Tax Lawyers, and so they are essentially a litigation practice doing high-end litigation associated with mostly federal taxes. So they're all lawyers, they're a separate business unit. Then there's also a controversy practice within the KPMG business, which is dealing with how to manage disputes before they get to the point of litigation. And so there's quite a lot of overlap between those two, and people can be involved in both. It's very much how do you avoid, and then if you can't avoid, how do you resolve those disputes? And if that ends up by a resolution in court, then we have that capacity.
Okay, so it's essentially a full service business still that you offer.
That's right, but just in relation to tax litigation as opposed to full service litigation.
Yeah. So I suppose, Matt, you were fortunate enough to have a long and distinguished career at a law firm before making the switch to KPMG. My question, though, is it feasible for a law student to start his or her career as a graduate at a place like KPMG and progress right through to partner?
Absolutely, yeah. So my team nationally are lawyers. We expect a law degree as a qualification for joining my team. And I'm part of KPMG, not part of KPMG Tax Lawyers. So I'm not in that dispute resolution part of the business. But nonetheless, they all have law degrees in my team. Throughout the rest of the tax practice, there's a very high proportion of people who have law degrees as well. Because when you think about what is tax advice is reading legislation, understanding cases, putting it together with a complex fact matrix, and coming up with a solution for a client.
Okay, definitely.
So very, very strong reliance on legal skills. Now, not all of the tax practice are lawyers, but all of my part of the practice are.
Right.
And so from there, there is very much the opportunity to progress through from the graduate to the partner.
Okay. For a law graduate, though, is there a requirement to have sort of an accounting background or an accounting degree or something like that?
No, not at all. So for most of the team, they will go through a tax training module, which is done in-house. That tax training doesn't assume any background in accounting, doesn't assume any background in economics. So we've got a very broad selection of people coming into the firm. And for some of those people, it doesn't even involve a background in law. So we've got people who are engineers who are now part of the tax practice. Their specialisation might be research and development tax. Within my own team, because we focus on state taxes, they study only the first module of the federal tax training that the rest of the tax team at KPMG study. But they're all expected to do that, and they're not expected to have an accounting or economics background. So it's quite a broad background that they have.
So Matt, what is the graduate recruitment process for a law student who wants to get into KPMG? Do you offer clerkships similar to private practice law firms?
Yeah, so we have interns each summer. In fact, they're due to arrive any day now, and I've got one allocated to my team. And so they have the opportunity over that internship to see what practice is like, as much as you do doing a clerkship with one of the law firms. After that, we have some people who will stay on immediately as a kind of a cadetship. And there are a few people throughout the tax team who've started as cadets right from the beginning of their studies, be it either accounting or law, and have worked all the way through. Just as with the law firms, there are a number of people who start at the beginning of law school and take a paralegal position and follow that through. Then we have a similar graduate recruitment program, and we send teams out to the different campus to meet the law students, similar interview kind of process, and then offers are made. And we've got quite a number of grads starting from February next year. I think we've got something of the order of 40 grads.
Oh, okay. So it's quite a large intake then.
It is quite a large intake, yeah.
And do the graduates get their College of Law? Do they go through and do College of Law similarly to graduates at a law firm?
Some do and some don't.
Okay. What's the reason for that?
It depends whether they want to, and a lot don't feel the need to. Practicing federal tax advice doesn't require a legal practicing certificate due to some federal exemptions. So a lot of the people down in the corporate team wouldn't bother going through college.
Okay.
But for those who want to, it's available. And so my team go through college and get admitted, just as was the case when my team was at Freehills.
Okay, excellent. And does the firm sponsor their College of Law fees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So
College of Law, we're covering in the same way that the PY would be covered.
Mm-hmm. Now, Matt, on to a different topic now. You've been quite outspoken on the issue of depression in the legal profession.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the firms are doing enough to safeguard the well-being of their people?
That's a really complicated and difficult issue. There are lots of programs that the law firms have worked on which deal with addressing depression and anxiety once employees and partners, so once the solicitors realise that there's something wrong. And I think the firms have actually come quite a way in that. And some of the programs that were introduced while I was at Freehills were really good at that. Where I think the difficulty is slowing down the rate of people getting to the point of suffering from depression and anxiety. Now, what sort of thing can a law firm do to make that difference? At the Tristan Jepson Memorial Foundation lecture that was held in October this year, we talked about that a bit. And I think it involves not so much a program as a change in approach. one of the things is to, in my view, one of the things is to look at the level of gearing that the firms have, to look at the expectations on performance of particular individuals, and to look at the impact that that has on them. So I think the comparison between the law firms and the financial advisory firms, such as KPMG, you see a bit of this difference. The different leverage model is critical to that.
Okay.
Other approaches, I think it's actually quite hard because we're all driven. And there is a degree to which the impact of depression and anxiety comes out from self-drive. So what is really important is to help people and to give people the freedom to truly recognise that they don't have to push themselves to the point of depression and anxiety. They can stop before they get to that point.
I suppose the sort of horrible hours that some lawyers are forced to work is definitely what contributes, along with their sort of inbuilt personality type, to a high incidence of depression. And you feel that changing the gearing ratio of lawyers to partners would do a lot to mitigate that problem?
Yeah, I think it can. If you look at the work hours at one of the major law firms, you're in a pressure cooker environment, client demands are high, and the amount of work that someone has to do can be quite extreme. If that's focused on a very small group of people, which it often is, that's a lot of pressure to put people under. With a greater degree of leverage, you're able to spread that across a broader team so that the impact on any one individual is much more moderated. Now, that sounds pretty easy, just put on more lawyers. I know that it's not that easy. There are a lot of different factors that go into it. But I think it's important for the law firms to look at what it is that they can do to manage the impact of those hours on people. Now, leverage is one way of looking at it. Another way might be to say, well, actually, we won't do work after certain hours, or we won't let our people work for more than a certain number of hours in a row. And I remember that there were stories coming out of London a number of years ago about the major firms from London going off risk after a certain time, or requiring indemnities from their clients after a certain time. Maybe that's an approach. I don't know whether factually that happened. Maybe that's an approach the firms could look at. But something needs to be done to be able to achieve clients' needs, but also to enable lawyers to actually have a balanced life.
Okay, definitely. Okay, and I suppose both lawyers and law students alike are quite driven, perhaps obsessive people, as you mentioned. Do you feel that having outside hobbies is important in maintaining a balanced lifestyle and good mental health?
Yeah, I do. It enables you to focus on something else. It gives you the opportunity to unwind from the particular issues of work and yet still to focus on something else. Mm-hmm. And what I've found in my own personal hobbies is that my focus on achievement in those hobbies is as extreme as my focus on achievement in work.
Oh, okay.
So, I like to win.
Right. So tell us about your hobbies. You've got some quite interesting ones.
Yeah. I have. When I left Freehills, I took up helicopter flying. That was at the encouragement of one of my best friends and also a former managing partner at Freehills. So I'm about halfway through a commercial pilot's license in helicopters. So that's one. Another is I'm a tech diver. So at the moment I've got a certificate to dive to 65 metres with mixed gases. And that has led to some wonderful holidays, exploring interesting parts of the world and obviously their depths. And then I also have a passion for champagne.
I noticed, in fact, that you won a very prestigious Australian award, the Vin de Champagne Award, and were rewarded recently with a trip to France.
That's right, yes. Back from that fairly recently.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
So that's a competition run by the Champagne Comité, which is the association of the growers and producers of champagne in France. They run it in Australia every 2 years in two categories. One for people who are in the food and wine industry, and then one for those who are just passionate about champagne. And this year I was fortunate enough to win that second category, the amateur category. It involved writing a series of essays about champagne, about its culture, its history, its economics and marketing, food and wine matching, a blind tasting, and then a panel interview.
Okay.
And my reward was a 2-week study tour of Champagne and appointment as an ambassador from Champagne to Australia.
Matt, do you have any final words to the law students out there who will no doubt be reading this interview with keen interest, both in terms of perhaps a career in tax law, in terms of the importance of hobbies, and also in terms of mental health?
In terms of career generally, I think I could only pass on some words from my uncle, who said to me as a young man, set your eyes on the stars, and if you achieve it, look what you've achieved. And if you fall short, you've still left the ground. So don't set your eyes on mediocre. Really aim and strive for something great. You'll be amazed what you can achieve. And the practice of law really does give people the skills and the opportunities to do that. My personal interest of tax, I think, is a wonderful area of law in that it provides all of the intellectual challenge. It's a very legalistic area, so that if you've enjoyed studying law, you'll really enjoy tax as a practice. We engage with clients on so many different complicated deals, so it's a lot of fun and a lot of challenge at the same time. Have hobbies, think broadly, enjoy life. In terms of depression and anxiety, I've made no secret of the fact that I tried to kill myself at one point. So life's short, play hard, enjoy it. It's not a trial run, so really, don't spend all your life in the office. Spend time with friends and family, and spend time enjoying things for yourself. And again, the law gives you the opportunity to do that, both the financial opportunity and the time and the connections to be able to do that sort of thing. So it really is a wonderful career. It's been a wonderful career for me, and I look forward to many more years of practice, but it's a wonderful career for young men and women to be entering.